Millionaire's mute daughter surprises Café with sign language. What happens next is shocking. The cafe buzzed with a lively chaos, laughter, clinking cups, and the familiar hiss of the espresso machine filled the air. But amidst the noise, an unexpected scene unfolded. The daughter of the city's wealthiest tycoon strolled in, a striking figure with raven black hair cascading around her shoulders. Her eyes, bright and fierce, surveyed the crowd. But there was something peculiar about her. She was mute. The room fell silent as every gaze turned toward her, a mix of curiosity and confusion flickering across faces. What was this millionaire's daughter doing here? The aroma of freshly brewed coffee hung in the air as she approached the corner table, her hands rising gracefully to the air. With a swift motion, she began to sign, her fingers dancing like a spellbound whirlwind. Each movement was fluid, like paint spilling onto a canvas, compelling and mysterious. Customers looked on, enraptured by the silence that now reigned, their coffee growing cold in their hands. It was as if the world stopped for just a moment to witness an unspoken connection, her passion flowing through every motion. Tension rippled through the crowd. Whispers began to swell. What is she saying? Is that a message? Eyes widened as she continued, seemingly communicating her heart to the silent cafe. The barista, a young man with wide eyes, leaned in closer, riddled with the urge to understand, to decipher her extraordinary language. He crouched beside her, anticipation hanging thickly in the air. Just then, an unexpected interruption shattered the moment. A loud crash echoed through the cafe as a stranger stumbled in, tripping over a chair, sending it careening. Gasps filled the room. The millionaire's daughter turned abruptly, her hands pausing in mid-air. The air crackled with electricity as the stranger's face contorted in shock at the sight of her. The tension was almost unbearable. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads-up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the stranger regained his footing, confusion painted his face. The energy shifted again. Was he here for her? The cafe, once filled with the chatter of ordinary lives, now held an anxious anticipation. The daughter's expression changed, something deeper simmering beneath the surface. No longer was she just a mute girl in a cafe, she was an enigma wrapped in the whispers of wealth and the unknown. Would her silent message change their lives forever? Why was she expressing something so profound in a public cafe? The questions spun in their minds, the suspense thickening, pulling them all in like a magnetic force. As her hands resumed their dance, they held their breath, each one eager for the revelation that would come next. The crowd held its breath, waiting to discover what lay buried beneath those intricate gestures. The stranger stood frozen, eyes locked on the daughter, a mix of recognition and disbelief washing over his face. The cafe grew darker in comparison to the vibrant scene they had just witnessed, uncertainty pressing down like a heavy fog. She signed furiously now, emotions flaring in her movements. Each flick of her wrist seemed imbued with urgency, desperation even, as she attempted to communicate something vital. The barista, now fully entranced, positioned himself right beside her, trying to piece together her expressive language. He was captivated, caught between the girl who had shattered the ordinary day and the stranger who had upended the moment. Can you understand her? Someone whispered, leaning over to poke at the conversation. The barista nodded, heart racing. He couldn't make out everything, but he could feel the weight of her words burrowing deep within him. Love? Loss? Betrayal? The words wrapped around him, precarious but alive. The stranger stepped forward, hesitantly. Something in her gesture called out to him, a spark igniting recognition. Wait, his voice broke the silence, rough and uncertain. He reached out, his hand hovering as if afraid her fragile spell would shatter. Can you hear me? In response, her fingers halted, and she locked eyes with him. The moment thrummed with potential energy, hearts pounding against the silence. The cafe noticed. The noise of the world outside faded as they leaned in closer, drawn by the gravity of this unexpected confrontation. The girl began to sign again, slower this time, eyes glistening with unshed tears. You left me. It felt like a thunderclap through the crowd, reverberating off the walls. The shadows in her expression deepened, and suddenly every person in the cafe felt the pull of their own emotional connections to those they lost. Gasps erupted from various corners, people whispering, agitated, mesmerized. The atmosphere transformed, weaving a fabric of shared pain through the cafe like an invisible thread. They were no longer just spectators, they became part of her aching story. The stranger's brow furrowed in panic, his hand retracting as if struck. No. I didn't leave you. I thought you. It was a jumble of words caught in turmoil, his face a mixture of apprehension and regret. This was a revelation unlike any other. Who were they? What had caused this rift between them? Just then, a few patrons exchanged looks, their own histories graveling into view. The cafe was filled with aching heartbeats and whispered revelations. Each customer scrutinized the pair, becoming unravelers of a mystery that no one ever anticipated nor fully understood. As the tension hung like a thick cloak, the daughter's expression hardened. Something deeper lay beneath her words. Perhaps, what she truly signed reflected not just her personal grief, but an urgent call that transcended her silence, a plea for redemption, for connections lost in the ruthless tangles of wealth and secrecy. Suddenly, the door swung open again, and another figure entered, this one cloaked in authority, a badge glinting under the soft cafe lights. The air thickened again, tension stretching like an elastic band poised to snap. The stranger's eyes darted between the daughter and the newcomer, and fear filled the moment. What had he brought back with him? And how would this new arrival change everything? All eyes turned toward the potential disaster unfolding, gasping as the threads of fate tightened. Just how deep did the secrets run, and what consequences awaited them all? With the weight of unsaid words in the room, the audience was left on the edge of their seats, ready for the next unraveling. What would happen next? Who held the answers, and were they strong enough to face the past? The officer's presence seemed like a cold slap that shattered the moment, and a collective intake of breath echoed through the cafe. Unsure whether to run or stay, every gaze anchored, charged with anxiety. The stranger's gaze shifted like quicksilver between the daughter and the newcomer. Confusion turned into disbelief, then fear as the realization hit him hard. What if the officer was here for him? Seconds felt like hours as the officer scanned the room, expression unyielding, eyes narrowed as if searching for something or someone. What had he dragged back to this small piece of the world? He could feel the heat rising in his cheeks, a telltale sign of panic. The cafe buzzed with unanswered questions, throbbing with the cacophony of mixed emotions. "Ma'am," the officer addressed the daughter, brisk and unwavering. "I need you to come with me." The girl recoiled as if stung, body rigid, fingers trembling like autumn leaves caught in a windstorm. She glanced swiftly at her father, the stranger who seemed to be straddling the line between regret and bewilderment. The barista instinctively leaned closer, sensing a crush of danger looming. "Wait!" shouted the stranger, his voice suddenly fierce, tearing through the tension like a knife. "She doesn't need to go anywhere, not again." The barista's heart pounded in his chest. Hadn't he just unmuffled a deep, buried pain? Wasn't this unfolding right in front of them? Applause from the casual observers had morphed into whispered speculations once the officer stepped in. The cafe, so full of ordinary patrons just moments before, now felt charged with adrenaline, its cozy warmth replaced by a chilly adrenaline spike. "Sir, step back," the officer warned, but there was a tremor beneath that authority, a flicker of uncertainty. He scanned the stranger's face, his brow knitting at the mix of desperation and anger there. Whoever this man was, the officer could sense the weight of his past bearing down. "Do you know what you've done?" The daughter's hands began to dance with urgency again, her expressions oscillating between raw emotion and a resolve that blazed like an open flame. You left, and now they're here. What do you mean? The stranger's voice wavered, and confusion flooded his features. Who's here? But the daughter's hands moved faster, intertwining words of warning that lifted from her as if ethereal, visible only within the confines of this charged moment. The officer stepped forward, eyes widening. What are you saying? I'm saying they'll come for you. A silence enveloped the café, heavy with the shock of revelation. The barista could feel every heartbeat, each pulse fraught with collective tension. The words hung like a storm cloud, threatening to unleash chaos. Whoever came for them would not take kindly to the scenes playing out now. Ma'am, I need you to calm down, the officer urged, yet the panic had roots deep in his own eyes. There's no one here. But the sudden rhythm of impatience crashed through the café. The door creaked open again, and another figure stepped inside. This one was unfamiliar but exuded an air of dread, the kind that turned friendly faces into masks of fear. A shiver coursed through the crowd. Whispers darted among patrons, snapping like electricity. Who is that? Came a murmur, shaky and incredulous, as all eyes fell on the new arrival, assessing danger in the line of sight drawing taut before them. The daughter's expression evolved, changed into an unreadable mixture of fear and resolve. What have you brought with you? She whispered, barely audible, but heavy with meaning. The stranger grasped at his throat, as if choking on words left unsaid. Could they really face what was to come? And with the officer now monitoring every twitch in the room, could the past that had been buried return to solve or threaten them all? As the walls seemed to close in, shadows danced at the edges of clarity, drawing them deeper into uncertainty. Secrets clung like smoke in the air, waiting to be revealed. What other truths might this tense web of connections spin? And when the past collided with the present, who would be left standing? The tension in the café had reached a boiling point. The newcomer stepped further inside, their silhouette uncomfortably familiar to the stranger yet shrouded in mystery. The slight movement of their coat and the faint glint of metal sparked a flicker of dread in him. Imminent danger loomed like storm clouds about to unleash chaos on an unsuspecting world. Why are you here? The stranger's voice cracked, the bravado slipping away as he confronted his old fears. He attempted to swallow the lump in his throat, but it remained lodged there, making it hard to breathe. The officer squared his shoulders, instinctively shifting to shield the daughter while his gaze flared with alarm. This isn't the time for games. If there's something you know, it's not a game. The daughter interjected sharply, her hands flying through the air. It's about their past, about the truth you've hidden. They know you're here, Dad. Echoes of confusion coursed around the room. Patrons tried to make sense of the crisis unfolding before them, fidgeting nervously in their chairs, eyes darting like moths drawn to a flame. The new figure, casting a dark shadow, stepped forward, revealing a face that seemed to belong to a storm. You left us no choice, the stranger said, voice low and cold. They want the girl. You know that. The weight of those words pressed down on the café, causing a collective shudder. I didn't choose this. The stranger gasped. Panic strung tight in his voice, intertwining with a hint of desperation. The officer glanced at the daughter, trying to gauge what inside her was screaming against the rising tide of the unknown. You said they'd come for us. Who are they? Tell them. The daughter urged, urgency thickening her words. If you're going to protect me, you have to tell them everything. We can't be blindsided again. The rise in her voice rippled through the crowd, capturing every heart in that café. Whispered fears now surged like waves crashing against rocks, with patrons leaning in to soak up the escalating drama. I can't. The stranger gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. If I do, I risk bringing a storm that won't stop until it tears us apart. The newcomer backed him against the wall, their own urgency flickering behind an icy facade. We are already torn apart. You can't hide her forever. If you don't do something, they'll come, and you'll have lost your last chance. The air was electric, thick enough to touch. The barista, watching from behind the counter, felt sweat trickling down his spine as the reality of the situation twisted before him. Everyone else could feel it too, the unbridled danger hanging in the balance, waiting for someone to tip the scales. The daughter was shaking now, a mixture of fear and defiance coursing through her. Why did you leave? Why? Her hands danced vehemently, as if trying to draw out answers from the smallest cracks in their tangled past. The officer stepped closer, his eyes tightening. Listen, we're not going to have a standoff in here. Whatever this is, we need to resolve it. But suddenly, the cafe door swung open relentlessly, and a gust of wind blew in, carrying the scent of rain. The sunlight dimmed momentarily, casting an ominous glow over the scene. A chill settled in as footsteps echoed from outside, purposeful and steady. The faces around the cafe turned to the door, a universal instinct of flight clawing for control. One figure from the shadows stepped forward, the unmistakable authority of the law but coupled with an unsettling aura, like a hunter closing in on his prey. The officer's expression shifted to something akin to dread. No, it can't be. Who's there? The daughter called out, her voice shaking but resolute, demanding answers under the weight of looming threat. In that moment, the lining of past and present frayed like an old fabric, threatening to unravel entirely. Could the truth they all feared truly come crashing down, or was this the moment they figured out how to fight for their survival? As the answer lingered in the air, a shadow emerged around the door that would redefine everything they thought they knew. The door creaked as if announcing the arrival of something sinister. The figure stepped fully into the cafe, face obscured by a large hat pulled low. The tension in the room thickened, even the small whirl of the coffee machine seemed to hush, as if it too held its breath. Officer Blaine, the newcomer said, and the voice was sharp, cutting through the heavy silence like glass. I've been looking for you. Blaine's eyes flickered with recognition. I'm not the person you think I am, he replied, but the tremor in his voice betrayed a different story. The daughter shifted nervously beside him, her heart drumming in her chest. You know this person? She whispered, glancing back and forth between the two men, confusion etched across her face. I thought I had left them behind. Blaine murmured, half to himself. An almost palpable regret dripped from his words. The stranger, seemingly unfazed, moved further into the cafe. With a swift motion, they removed their hat, revealing short-cropped hair and a piercing gaze that settled on the daughter. You're in danger. More than you know. At that, a murmur rippled through the patrons, cell phones drawn in anticipation of the drama playing out before them. The heaviness in the air transformed into something electric, as if each person was being pulled into a vortex of fate. The daughter's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Who sent you? Not who, the stranger replied, voice firm yet urgent. What? There's something coming for you, and it's not just the past. It's the future I'm afraid of. Blaine took a step forward, attempting to bridge the widening chasm of fear. Nobody needs to hear this here, not in public. Let us step outside. That's where this conversation belongs. How would you know that? You ran away. You kept running. The daughter shouted, a mixture of fury and heartbreak in her voice. The cafe was alive with whispers. Why did he leave? What is going on? Do you want to keep running, or do you want to finally stand and fight? The stranger's words seemed to shake the very ground beneath them, stirring something deep within the daughter. Then, the door swung open again, this time with blinding light streaming in. Another figure, smaller but no less burdened with weighty intent, stood at the threshold. Eyes darting around the cafe, they paused, locking eyes with the newcomer. Did you bring the truth? The new arrival called out, voice trembling but resolute. The impact of their words ricocheted through the stunned crowd, revealing layers of unspoken history. Where is she? The stranger demanded, and even for those who may not have understood the implications, the urgency was crystal clear. Blaine's heart raced. Who else is involved? He murmured, but his own question felt lost as emotions bubbled over around them. Lies will cost lives, the newcomer replied sharply, taking a tentative step closer. The only way out is through the truth. The air vibrated with tension, suppressing breath, suspending time. Patrons leaned in, caught in the undertow of this revelation, some beginning to whisper desperately amongst themselves. The daughter felt the enormity of the moment crash over her. Just tell me what I need to know, she urged, her hands shaking as they clutched at the edge of the table. Tell me and I'll decide what to do. But the silence stretched on, heavy and suffocating. Each heartbeat echoed like a countdown. Whatever storm was brewing, it was inching closer, its winds ready to tear apart the fragile fabric of their lives. As the weight of what was about to unfold suspended in the air, a phone buzzed violently on a table nearby. The screen lit up, revealing a message that would threaten to change everything. A single word flashed: run. In that instant, the sound of clattering chairs and panicked gasps erupted, urgency striking like a match to the fuse of fear. Would they follow the warning and flee, or face what awaited them in the storm? And who would be left standing when the dust settled? Chaos erupted in the cafe like a sudden storm. The word run echoed in the minds of every patron, a chilling command that turned the atmosphere electric. Blaine's instincts kicked in, and he moved toward the door, but the daughter's eyes were wide with uncertainty. Dad, wait! She called, her voice barely breaking through the rising panic. Just then, the stranger, still with that piercing gaze, added urgency. We don't have time to waste. If you want to escape the truth coming for you, we need to act now. Blaine turned, searching his daughter's face. A swath of fear washed over him. We need to stick together. Suddenly, a loud crash punctuated the tension. A chair toppled over in the back, and gasps cascaded through the crowd. Patrons shoved their way to the exits, some stumbling over each other in a frenzy to reach safety. The last thing he wanted was to lose her in all this chaos. Let us get out, he shouted, grabbing her wrist. But she pulled away, defiance flashing in her eyes. No. We have to find out what's happening. Who's coming for me? Before he could respond, the smaller figure who had entered before took a step closer, urgency pulsating off them. You're standing at the edge of a truth so deep it could drown you both. The danger isn't just what's outside, it's what's already inside of you. The daughter took a breath, torn between fear for her life and curiosity about this new revelation. What are you saying? I can't explain everything here, the stranger said, glancing nervously toward the exit as if expecting something or someone to burst through at any moment. But if you want to know the truth about your past, you need to trust us. They're coming. Trust? Blaine scoffed. And why should we trust you? Because, the newcomer stepped closer, lowering their voice to a near whisper, I'm the only one who knows how deep this goes. I can help you. Desperation hung in the air as the daughter turned to her father. We can't keep running, Dad. Not from this. From what they're saying. We need answers. Just then, a shadow loomed at the entrance. Another figure stepped inside, drenched in darkness, a stark contrast to the blinding light pouring from the outside. With a commanding presence that silenced the crowd once again, this individual scanned the room, searching for something or someone. Blaine's heart raced wildly. No, it can't be, he muttered, fear gripping his chest like a vice. Do you know them? The daughter asked, her anxiety palpable. Blaine shook his head, but uncertainty clouded his face. The newcomer from moments ago glanced nervously at the new arrival. They're here to take you back. They can't find out what we've uncovered. What have they uncovered? Blaine challenged, fighting to gather the pieces. What is going on? The figure standing at the door smirked, the light behind them illuminating a family resemblance that sent chills racing down Blaine's spine. What you thought was buried is about to resurface. Are you ready to face it? The tension suffocated the cafe, each moment stretching painfully as the stakes rose. The daughter felt as if the earth had shifted under her feet. "It's too late to hide," the figure concluded, voice dripping with intent. As the words hung in the tense air, the daughter shot a look to her father. "We can't ignore this. If we stay, we might uncover what's waiting in the darkness." Blaine felt broken, cornered without choices, but the resolve in his daughter's voice ignited a spark. "So we stand and fight?" he asked, searching for some clarity in the chaos. As questions swirled and adrenaline pumped, a deafening roar erupted outside, the sound of engines, sirens, chasing them through the door of fate. What awaited them out there? Would they choose to plunge into the truth or flee into an uncertain future? A decision loomed, heavier than before, and its consequences would ripple beyond this moment. Blaine's heart pounded in his ears, drowning out the frantic sounds around them. The crowd surged toward the exit, faces twisted in fear, but all he could see was his daughter's defiance. A million questions raced through his mind. What truth? What darkness? With a deep breath, he gripped her wrist again. "We can't just stand here. We Dad." She interrupted, her brown eyes blazing with determination. "If that person is right, then I need to know why." "Why what?" Blaine shot back, desperation creeping into his voice. "Why do you want to endanger yourself?" "Because I can't live in the shadows anymore." Her voice cracked, filled with a mix of fear and frustration. The intimidating figure at the entrance took a step forward, black clothes absorbing the glaring light. "You think you have a choice, girl? They will find you whether you like it or not." Blaine swung around, the stranger's words igniting a flicker of urgency in him. He needed to protect her, but from what? Who was coming? The stranger, still standing beside them, whispered fiercely, "This isn't just about curiosity. It's a matter of survival. The truth could set you free or shackle you forever." Before they could process this, the roar of engines grew louder, followed by the distinct sound of tires screeching. A wave of panic swept through Blaine, pushing him to act. "We're leaving now," he shouted. But as he pulled his daughter towards the door, she dug in her heels. "No!" she cried, pulling back. "We have to confront whatever it is that's looking for me." A loud crash echoed from behind. Splintering wood and shattered glass cascaded as more figures stormed into the cafe, faces obscured in shadow, their presence menacing, an invasion amplified by the chaos. "Run!" Blaine urged, but his voice was lost in the mounting fear as the cafe patrons began screaming and stumbling over one another once more. The newcomer's voice cut sharply through the noise. "Do you want the truth? The promise of answers? Follow me. Why should we trust you?" Blaine shouted, every muscle in his body urging him to flee. The figure took a deep breath, their demeanor softening. "Because I've seen them, Blaine. I know the risks because they're following you. They want her." The world slowed as Blaine glanced at his daughter, who stared wide-eyed at the stranger, caught between a storm of fear and curiosity. Blaine felt the ground shift beneath him. Something about this stranger felt familiar. They weren't just some random person caught up in the chaos. "Who are you?" Blaine demanded, the quiet around them thickening. A flicker of recognition blossomed in the stranger's eyes, a shared connection they both felt but couldn't verbalize. "I'm the key to her past, and we're running out of time." Through the thickening tension and growing anxiety, a murmur began to spread among the patrons watching the newcomers. An almost imperceptible whisper of the word legacy. "Please," his daughter urged. "I need to know where I come from." The air was taut with expectation, decisions hung heavy. Blaine's heart raced. Was this what it meant to truly protect her? To be willing to face the unknown? But in the back of his mind, something bitter gnawed at his resolve, a promise to keep her safe, right? In that fleeting moment, a siren wailed just outside, piercing the tension as the crowd reeled back in shock, eyes glued to the door. Blaine hesitated, heart splitting between dread and a desperate need for answers. Could they trust this figure? Could the truth offer salvation? As the dark figures advanced, closing the distance, the moment blurred, and the choice crystallized. Okay, he finally muttered, breathless. We'll find out together. But just as they turned to follow the stranger, the lights flickered, casting long shadows across the cafe floor, and with a chilling laughter, one of the figures raised a hand. Too late to turn back now, little girl. What came next would seal their fate, pushing them toward a truth far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. The lights danced erratically before plunging the cafe into an eerie half-light. Blaine's heart raced as he pulled his daughter protectively against him, scanning the encroaching shadows. Anxiety clenched at his gut. It felt like they were living in a nightmare that refused to end. Stay close, he murmured fiercely. The urgency in his voice was bitter against the chaos. They had made their choice, but now they had to live with the consequences, whatever they might be. The figure leading them stepped boldly into the space, its silhouette polished against the flickering lights. We need to move. It pivoted, a hand extended behind it like a shield. Trust me. Blaine's instinct screamed at him to run, to escape this madness. Yet his daughter, caught in a maelstrom of bravery and terror, hesitated. I want to know who they are, Dad. What's chasing us? The shadows grew thicker, the air alive with palpable tension. A heavy thud sounded as a figure crashed through the doorway, splintering it wider. There they are. They advanced, faces still obscured, but their presence was undeniably hostile. What are you doing? Blaine shouted, fury igniting in his chest. You're putting her in danger. Don't you see? The stranger shot back, voice fierce yet steady. Knowledge is your weapon. Ignorance is what they want. Blaine shifted, clenching his fists. Each moment felt stretched, caught in a web of fear and urgency. He stole a glance at his daughter. She was unflinching, determination hardening her stance. Suddenly, the figures that had stormed and let loose wild, guttural cries, echoing as they surged forward. One lunged, knocking over chairs and tables in a desperate attempt to reach them. Blaine flinched, pulling his daughter tighter, ready to protect her at all costs. The stranger raised their hands. Stand back. We don't want to hurt you. Then why do they want her? Blaine barked, his voice rising above the noise. Dark laughter erupted from behind the advancing figures, chilling Blaine to the bone. You don't know, do you? The girl holds the key to everything. What do you mean? Blaine's voice wavered, confusion and terror spiraling in his chest. Everything felt layered with deception. The air hummed as if the answers lay just out of reach, teasing him. You're a legacy, the stranger pressed, urgency woven into their tone. It's all connected, Blaine. Your family, your past, it's more than just a story. As if struck by a thunderbolt, she took a step forward, her voice rising above the chaos. Tell us. Please. An endless moment dragged on, filled with noise and dread. The cafe trembled under the weight of uncertainty, and Blaine's heart battered against his ribcage. The unknown loomed larger than ever. What was this legacy? Why did it matter? The leading figure choked out a desperate laugh, seemingly relishing the chaos. Too bad for you, girl. You're about to find out the hard way. In that instant, lights flickered completely dark, a consuming black enveloping them. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, the silence ringed with tension. Blaine felt his daughter gripped by fear, her breath hot against his skin. Hold my hand. He commanded, reaching out blindly. After a heartbeat, she grabbed his fingers tightly. The world spun wildly as cold dread twisted in Blaine's stomach, but that bond, her presence, anchored him. With a deafening crash, the door broke open fully, and in came a wave of shadows, thirsting for answers, for power. The stranger shouted their warning one last time, but the words faded into the background noise of chaos. Just as Blaine lunged toward safety, prepared to protect his daughter at all costs. One last shadowy figure emerged, holding something long and pointed. Their voice cut through the haze. "Choose quickly, Blaine. The truth or your daughter's life." And just like that, he stood at a crossroads, the weight of the universe pressing on him. What would it cost them to learn the truth? As the shadows closed in, pulling them deeper into the abyss, Blaine could only hope they wouldn't pay a price heavier than their hearts could bear. What awaited them on the other side? Would they find the answers they sought, or unearth even more darkness? Darkness enveloped them, thick and suffocating. Blaine's blood thumped in his ears, drowning out everything else: the panicked whispers, the crashing furniture, the manic laughter that echoed ominously. He gripped his daughter's hand tighter, the connection grounding him against the chaos unfolding around them. "Get back!" he yelled to the shadows that surged forward, fear clawing at his throat. It was impossible to know how many figures lurked within the void, but the dread radiating from them was palpable, a smothering blanket of intent that made every hair on his body stand on end. "Blaine!" His daughter's voice trembled, breaking through the turmoil. "What do we do?" Her wide eyes shimmered with both terror and an unsettling curiosity. It tore at him, the innocence trapped in a storm of uncertainty. "We trust each other," he replied, trying to tether them to hope. "We find a way out together." Another crash resounded, shooting pulses of shock through the air. Crouched low, he urged his daughter to move, pushing her gently forward. The stranger had vanished in the darkness, leaving only their fervent warning hanging in the air: "Choose quickly." "What do they mean?" His daughter panted, her fingers trembled against his. "What truth? What's the key?" As they stumbled through the obscurity, Blaine's mind raced. Could the truth really be worth their lives? Just then, the figure with the pointed object loomed closer, outlined against the dim light barely penetrating the chaos. Shadows clung to their face, obscuring their features, but the intent in their movements was unmistakably aggressive. "Did you think you could escape?" the figure hissed. They waved the pointed object menacingly, a blade glinting dangerously. Instinct kicked in, and Blaine drew his daughter behind him, ready to shield her at all costs. "We're not afraid of you," he shouted, his voice surprisingly steady despite the tremor in his heart. The laughter returned, cold and mocking. "Ah, but you should be. The truth is a double-edged sword, Blaine." The figure stepped closer, a hint of menace sharpening their words. "Choose wisely." Suddenly, a flicker of light surged through the café, illuminating the room in fits and starts. Blaine briefly glimpsed the stricken faces around them, fear mirrored in every expression, a room of souls trapped in this tempest of uncertainty. Before he could react, the figure brandished the blade higher. "The truth is buried deep within your past, Blaine. All your questions will be answered, but the retribution will be severe." The weight of those words smashed against him, dragging him down into his own turmoil. His mind flooded with memories of secrets long buried, of choices made with the relentless tide of time. "Whatever you think you know, that's not who I am," he managed, confidence battling his fear. "I won't be defined by anyone's secrets." With a roar, the figure lunged, but Blaine was faster. He flung himself to the side, shoving his daughter behind a toppled table. The blade sliced through the air, missing him by a hair. The air crackled with tension. "Run!" he shouted. "Just run." His daughter hesitated, eyes flicking from him to the dark figure, torn between fear and instinct. "But what about?" "Go. I'll hold them off." In that moment, the café came alive, a whirlwind of blurred figures, screams, and the brutal sounds of confrontation. Blaine could feel them closing in around him, but every ounce of adrenaline ignited in his veins, pushing him to protect the one light that mattered most. As shadows stretched toward him, he stepped into the void, a flickering silhouette in the fading glow. He fought against the tide of dark intentions, each careful movement a promise to keep his daughter safe. The truth was waiting just beyond this chaos, but at what cost? Without a second thought, he bellowed, "You want the truth? Come and get me." And all at once, the shadows surged forward, ready to plunge him deeper into a darkness he had never anticipated. Would he survive this fight? Or would the truth he desperately sought lead them all down a dead end they could never escape? Blaine's fierce declaration hung in the air, an echo of defiance against the shadows engulfing the café. The darkness rushed toward him like a tidal wave, a surge of malevolent intent. He could feel the icy breath of fear mixing with anger, fueling his resolve. He'd protect his daughter, whatever it took. "Run!" he shouted again, a strained command aimed at his daughter. Her gaze held him for just a moment, before panic flickered in those brown eyes. "Dad, I can't leave you." He choked on a breath, the desperation clawing at his throat. "You have to. You're the only one who can face this." The shadows surged, seeking to smother every trace of light, every hope. Blaine fought back, plunging into the chaos, hands swinging and grabbing at whatever he could find to push the oncoming figures away. Tables toppled over, chairs scraped against the ground as he barreled into the fray. Just as he felt the darkness creeping closer, a figure burst forward from behind him, his daughter. She had turned, her instinct for survival overridden by loyalty. "I'm not running," she shouted, fear and defiance entwined, fingers poised a sign. Gripping her hand, he pulled her close. "You have to listen. We need to outsmart them, find an escape route. Look for the exits." They struggled together, a tether between courage and survival. But the shadows' voices took shape, echoing through the café, their words laced with mockery. "You can't hide from the truth. It will find you." Then, in a blinding flash, a figure stepped forward, one of the dark silhouettes, face still obscured but now revealing a glint of metal. Blaine's heart plummeted, the blade gleamed ominously. "Enough games, Blaine." A voice spat, cutting through the noise like a knife. "You'll regret this. The truth is coming for you, and it won't hold back." "Dad, what does that mean?" His daughter's voice trembled, pulling his focus. "What truth?" Blaine turned, urgency swelling in his chest. "Legacy. Secrets. It all ties back to us." The weight of tomorrow pressed against him, and he couldn't let his daughter bear the burden alone. Silence fell over them like a thick blanket, the anticipation thick and tangible. He faced the advancing figure, muscles taut, ready for the onslaught. "I won't let you hurt her. Why do you think I came?" The shadow snarled. "You've kept her from her heritage, Blaine. It's time to face your past." As the figure lunged, Blaine's instincts kicked in. He snatched a chair, swinging it with all his strength. The clatter of wood striking flesh echoed, catching the shadow off guard. A deep growl of pain erupted, and Blaine seized the moment. "Now!" he urged, yanking his daughter with him toward the back of the café. They waded through a chaotic battlefield of skirmishes, broken furniture, and gasps of wide-eyed patrons. Then, suddenly, the doors burst open, daylight streaming in. A slice of clarity amidst the chaos. "Out!" The word exploded from Blaine as they more tumbled than ran toward the exit. Light poured in, illuminating their path to freedom. As they burst through the door, an officer stood poised, glaring down the street where shadows loomed, ready to catch them. Blaine recognized that fear in those eyes, an understanding of the darkness hunting them. "Blaine!" Officer Blaine called out. "What has happened in there?" His breath heaving, Blaine turned, hands still gripping his daughter's. "We can't go back. They want the truth, and I can't let them take her." The officer's brow furrowed. "No one's taking anyone. Just explain what happened." "No time." There was no time for hesitation. Blaine felt the ground quake beneath his feet, urgency reigniting his instincts. They had to get away. "Take my hand." He shouted, and in that moment of choice, they fled into the daylight, squeezing through tightly knit bodies on the street. Together, they ran, the sounds of chaos growing quieter behind them, the sirens' wails fading as the shadows lost their hold within the café. He would face whatever horrors lay ahead, but for now, they were alive, racing forward into the unknown. "Where do we go now?" His daughter's voice shook, but there was determination in her eyes. "Anywhere but here," Blaine replied, glancing over his shoulder once more. The café faded into a mere blur, a symbol of their past, tangled with uncertainty and secrets. "Look at me," he urged, grasping her shoulders. "Whatever comes next, we face it together. Answers are waiting for us, but we will uncover them in our own time." "Together," she echoed, her voice quaking but resolute. The bond forged through shadow and light shimmered brightly, casting away the darkness. With newfound resolve, they raced onward, ready to meet the future. The storm would come, but they would stand against it. They would chase the truth, armed with their strength and the promise of hope. It was time for them to write their own story, unshackling the burdens of the past. Together, they would navigate whatever came next, hands intertwined like a tattoo of courage etched against the backdrop of uncertainty. And as they faded into the horizon, a silent agreement hung in the air. The truth would no longer chain them, but pave the way to a future brimming with possibilities. This was just the beginning. Now's your chance to be part of this journey. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button and feed the algorithm. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about today's ending. Let us connect and share this remarkable journey. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this thrilling conclusion. Together, we can keep this amazing community growing.